Okay, welcome everybody. We are starting this webinar this is a presentation webinar for the MOOC Sapienza Coursera course. The title of the course is Macroeconomic Financial Accounts, and my name is Giuseppe De Arcangelis. I'm professor of international economics here at Sapienza, University of Rome. Let me remind you the plan of this webinar. It's a 1-hour webinar. So right after this brief introduction, we will have a very short introductory video of the project and of the course, and then right after that we will have two officials who are going to give their welcome address. We will have Giuseppe Ciccarone, who's already joining here. Giuseppe is vice rector of Sapienza and deputy rector for what we call here the third mission of the university, meaning that basically he is responsible for all the projects outside say academic projects with the private sector. And let me say that I'm particularly glad that Giuseppe is joining us, because besides being an official at the university, he's also an economist. So I think he certainly appreciates this project. We have been colleagues for a very long time, and I really thank him about that. And then we have Professoressa Emma Galli here. She's vice head of the Department of Social Sciences and Economics, my department. Emma is substituting for Professor D'Urso, who could not join us because of a health appointment that he could not put off. Right after these welcome addresses, Daniele Fano and myself, the two instructors of the course, will give a short overview of the course and the importance of macroeconomic financial accounts. And right after that, we will have the roundtable that will be chaired by Peter van de Ven, a former OECD official there. And I remind you that at the roundtable, Henning honored from the European Central Bank, Silvia Fabiani from the Bank of Italy, Bruno Tissot from the Bank for International Settlements, and Jorrit Zwijnenburg from the OECD will be present at the roundtable. Okay, so let's start with a short presentation video at this point.
Welcome to the first week of our course. In these initial lectures, you will be introduced to the basics of macroeconomic financial accounting. Finance deals with reallocation of resources between the present and the future, between today and tomorrow. Both individuals and institutions seek financial activity to improve their welfare.
Understanding macrofinancial accounts. Let's start with course 1. We are going to introduce financial accounts and balance sheets. We will focus on week 1 on a specific item, financial transactions, and specifically net lending, net borrowing. Well, let's warm up. When designing this course, we asked ourselves, what could be the best way to get started? We decided to take you right away at the heart of the matter.
The MOOC is built on an active engagement. The assignments will be corrected by your peers, and this will increase the process of shared creation of knowledge. As tutor, Francesco and myself will guide you in this journey through financial accounts and will help you to understand the topic by answering your questions. We will create some tutorials to help you carry out your assignments, and we will be available on chat for any doubts. Don't hesitate to contact us. The MOOC is based on the book Understanding Financial Account, co-edited by Peter van de Van and Daniele Fano. You will meet him several times during the course. Last but not least, remember, I'm not alone in this journey. My colleague Francesco will soon introduce himself. Have a good job!
Hi everybody, I'm Francesco. I will be your tutor for the course on macroeconomics and financial accounts. Together with Sofia, we will guide you to the complex world of data and financial account. We will help you with the assignment, and we will always be ready answering your questions and solving the doubt that you will have after the lecture. I hope you will enjoy this course, and you will increase your knowledge after this experience. Thank you, and bye-bye.
Okay, thanks everybody for joining us once again. And now let me give the floor to Professor Ciccarone first, and then Magali for their welcome address. Please go ahead, Giuseppe.
Thank you, Giuseppe. Good morning, everybody. I want to be very brief because I'm looking forward to listening to the presentations by Giuseppe and Daniele and to the contributions to the roundtable. Let me just tell you that Sapienza is honored to welcome you to this presentation webinar. I bring the regards of my rectress, Antonella Polimeni, who's sorry she cannot be here today with us due to other institutional commitments. Besides this, let me just focus on very briefly on 5 items which I believe are the motivation for this course, and also to sketchily stress what I think are important contributions that the course makes. First of all, a course on financial accounts is an important contribution to the interpretation, elaboration, and collection of data, which can provide an important support to the understanding of the functioning of the economic system. We believe it is also a very relevant support to the formulation of economic policies, which we believe must more and more rely on reliable data that can be gathered and presented on a frequent basis. The second item is that the course is an important step, a further step, in the provision to both students and researchers, teachers, of, let's say, new, more advanced forms of teaching in an historical phase which we are experiencing, and where the role of online platforms is certainly going to increase. Let me tell you that Sapienza is today an important actor in this environment, because we already offer, in collaboration with Coursera, several courses on a wide variety of topics. The third point I wish to stress is that this course is, in our opinion, an important contribution to the development of a long tradition of research and studies on the subject matter that saw Rome as an important player. Since the second half of the past century, Rome has indeed been an important hub in the international effort to elaborate financial accounting. This has been possible also because of the presence of the Bank of Italy in our city, and to the contributions which have been provided by several departments of our university. My fourth point is that the course is a paradigmatic example of fruitful
Ti mando l'ID.
and cooperation that can be established between. I think, Giuseppe, you're speaking on the mic. I think you should shut down your mic. Thank you. I was telling you, this is a good example, and this is important to me as prorector for the third mission of fruitful collaboration and cooperation that can be established between the academia and other important institutions like the ones that have been participating in this project. And finally, my fifth point is that this course is a relevant case of specifies what the third mission is today understood, at least in Europe, that is a notion of knowledge exchange and collaboration, and in this case, between our university and society. We think that this course is a good example which is totally consistent with the way we interpret our role in the development of what has been traditionally defined as the third vision of academic institutions. So let me please express all my gratitude, the gratitude of my universities, to all the colleagues and institutions who contributed to the realization of the course, to the people who have organized the seminar, and to all the participants. As I told you in the introduction, I'm really looking forward to listening to the presentations and the contributions to the roundtable. Thank you very much. Welcome again, and let's go on. Thank you.
Thank you, Giuseppe. Please, Emma,
yes,
it's your turn.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Giuseppe, again. Well, I'm very pleased to be with you today in this initiative. And I would like to, first of all, say and wish a good afternoon to all the speakers and the participants to the event. I'm representing here, as Giuseppe said, the Department of Social Sciences and Economics, and the department, thanks to the leading role of Professor Giuseppe De Arcangelis and to the participation in the project of other colleagues like Claudio Sardoni, who is here today, has contributed to the realization and implementation of this course on macroeconomic financial accounts. Well, nowadays we assist to a growing research strand on the financial literacy, and this project is perfectly in line with this trend, which stressed the importance of a correct interpretation and use of the financial data in the analysis. And in this respect, our department, as well as Sapienza in general, has inherited and even further developed a legacy in the fields of macroeconomic financial accounts. Let me just to remind you that one of our former governors of the Bank of Italy, Paolo Baffi, was one of the fathers of the development of the financial accounting in Italy, and has taught monetary policy in our department. We have a long tradition of cooperation with several non-academic institutions, like the ones that are participating to this project. And have to say that over the years, many representatives of these institutions have contributed with seminars, lectures, to the activities of the department. And some people that graduated in our courses have become members of these institutions. Therefore, I think that this project, is an ambitious one, is very important because it will stress and favor the importance of the data and information on financial accounts, and it will be also part of an educational offer to our students in order to further develop new forms of teaching. I don't want to take other time because I think that there are a lot of speakers and a lot of interesting think that we are going to listen today. And so I thank again the organizer of the initiative, and especially the ones that were so involved in making this project possible. Thank you, Giuseppe, and I wish everybody a good afternoon.
Thank you, Emma. Thank you, Giuseppe. And I think it's now time for me and Daniele, as the two project leaders here, to give an overview of the course. And let me help myself with a few slides. Well, first, I really want to start by thanking the sponsors and all the people that collaborated and really worked hard for the realization of this course. Some of the representatives of these institutions are here: the Bank for International Settlements, the Bank of Italy, the European Central Bank, the OECD. They all contributed financially and or in kind to this project. Now, among the people I really wish to thank here, well, one is Professor Claudio Sardoni. He has been mentioned already by Emma Galli. Basically, Daniele Fano, myself, and Claudio were the founders, the designers of this project more than 3 years ago, when we got together and we got the idea of this course. Secondly, well, the Sapienza MOOC committee here, and in particular, Professor Rino Ragno and Professoressa Sabrina Sarto, for their continuous technical support for the realization of this course. The tutors, Francesco Ruggeri and Sofia Poggi, you have already seen them on the video, and they are still active during the course that will start shortly. Chiara Rigoli was our excellent video maker. You have seen some of her skills in the video before. And last but not least, Anna Margarita, who's now behind the scenes. She's not, I mean, she's behind the Macroeconomic Sapienza account, and she has been an essential support for the whole project here. I'm sure I forgot someone, and I apologize in advance for this. But let me use my few minutes to give an overview of the course. Well, first, the course, as has been mentioned also in the video, is based on a book that was edited just a few years back, Understanding Financial Accounts. The two editors are Peter van de Ven, who's actually chairing the round table later, and Daniele Fano, as we said already, has been one of the instructors in the course, and we'll give a short presentation later. Now, this is the page that you will see, you can actually see already at Coursera, where you can enroll already in the course. The course will start in a few days from now, January 17th, this coming Monday. But as I said, I mean, the pre-enrollment is already active, and this is the screenshot of what you can see here. And below here, you have the URL that you can type on your web browser to reach this page here. Just to give a brief overview of the course, this is a 6-week course. In each of the week, these are the different topics that will be covered with all the typical MOOC Coursera arrangements. So with video, with activities that are designed for the different learners here. Now, I don't have the time to go through all of this due to the time constraint, but you can see that basically all the many topics are covered here. And let me say at the end that this is just one of a series of 3 courses. This is just the basics for macroeconomic financial accounts. In the pipeline, we have 2 more courses that we are designing, and that will be, say, much more specialized and will constitute a 3-course specialization typical on Coursera here. Now, finally, I would say I'm the what the third economist talking here, besides Giuseppe and Emma. And let me say a few words. Well, Giuseppe has already underlined the importance of data for economics, for economists. I'm an international economist. I'm an economist. I'm not a statistician here. But as an economist, I'm a data user, and I fully believe that this course should be really a requirement for everybody who would like to use the figures that are behind the data to understand their meaning and to use correctly all the data that will come up out of the financial accounts. Phenomena like the great financial crisis, the financial consequences of the COVID health crisis, well, they can all be understood well only with a good knowledge of the data. But let me be more specific, and let me talk about a particular type of document that it's very important for me as an international economist, the balance of payments. Now, as you all know, the balance of payments is a document very important to understand the situation of an economy. And as a teacher, this is basically one of the first topics for students that I usually introduce together with all the different relationships with the different institutional sectors. But as you all know, the balance of payments is formed of many different balances. Many different figures can get out of the balance of payments documents usually, and these are not clear for everybody. And for this, let me quote this article by Charles Kindleberger. For everybody who's accustomed to, who knows a little bit of international economics, Charles Kindleberger was one of the fathers of international economics back in the second half of the last century. This is a paper that he published in the Journal of Political Economy in 1969. It's called, as you see here, Measuring Equilibrium in the Balance of Payments. And I think that especially for the people who are attending this webinar today as panelists, I think that the first sentence that you can see here is pretty scary. Because back in 1969, over 50 years ago, basically what Charles was saying is, well, let me read the first two lines, which says, it is tempting to suggest that we should abolish balance of payments statistics. Now, after 50 years, statistics are still here and safe, but basically what Kindleberger is saying here is that basically it's very difficult to get one single number out of the balance of payments document. And basically that you can say whatever you want by combining different balances in an appropriate way. Well, there is another quote on this paper that I'd like to mention, which is here, I reported here. Basically, later in the paper, Charles Kindleberger says, well, it concludes that there is no single number which can be given to known economists. Well, I think this is probably the best motivation for this course, basically to uncover the meaning of what is behind every single number out of the different macroeconomic financial accounts. Thank you. And let me give the floor to Daniele now, who probably has something else to say with regards to macroeconomic financial accounts. Please go ahead, Daniele.
Thank you very much, Giuseppe. I will share my screen and yes, well, I will take a longer view than Giuseppe, but I think financial accounts have a long story, and I would like to compare national financial accounts to a beautiful and powerful tree whose roots go deep into a fertile land. and whose branches are ever growing across the years and the seasons, be they rough or sunny, tempestuous or serene. Two great economists have planted the seeds. Simon Kuznets pioneered the definitions on national income and studies and their uses. This is a long time ago, just before World War II in the 30s. And John Maynard Keynes, after writing the general theory, encouraged data collection and policy tools, especially by addressing in a book a challenge that we are maybe facing again in these days, when he wrote the book, How to Pay for the War. And his objective was exactly, how can you pay for the war without generating disastrous inflation? And now we are facing a sort of post-COVID war situation. Other statisticians, economists, and policymakers have followed with key contributions. Among the many, let's just mention Richard Stone, who started as a student of Keynes and advised the UN in setting macro statistic guidelines in the post-war period. Maurice Copeland, who created the flow of funds system for the Federal Reserve. Raymond Goldsmith, who inaugurated extensive inquiries into comparative balance sheets. And a lot of activity went on in the years following the Second World War, until following the 2007-2009 financial crisis, the Financial Stability Board, with Mario Draghi as chairman, launched the Information Gaps Initiative, together with the IMF and the support of the Interagency Group on Economic and Financial Statistics, IAG, which also includes the BIS and the ECB, Eurostat, and the OECD, the United Nations, and the World Bank. And this has given a tremendous impulse to data collection that statisticians and economists previously didn't even dream of. I would like to make a personal note here. When I started working on financial accounts about just over 20 years ago, I had to jump from one central bank report to another with different date of issuance, sometimes also with different criteria. Well, nowadays, there is a wealth of systematic data, and I can tell you, this brings us exactly to this recent period. The impact of the Data Gap Initiative has been just enormous, and this allows this course to be very practical. Now, national financial accounts have developed in parallel with national accounts to which they belong. So on the left side of the slide, you can see all the steps of the different editions of the system of national accounts, starting from 1953 with the SNA to the 2008 SNA, and today we have Peter van der Ven, who is coordinating the new SNA initiative. Now, in parallel, you can see on the right the development. I just highlighted some key moments. In the 1950s, we have the creation of financial accounts by central banks and the establishment in 1967 of the OECD Working Party on Financial Statistics. And this is still the key forum for the continuous development of the accounts. Nowadays, the Bank of International Settlements, the European Central Bank, the International Monetary Fund, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, a number of national statistical offices and central bank, including the pioneer Federal Reserve of the United States, are powerful actors of the continuous update, development, and refinement of the accounts. And the forthcoming new edition of the SNA, System of National Accounts, will certainly represent a milestone. So the tree is growing ever stronger. And thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Daniele. And now let's jump into, say, the more, I would say, academic part of the webinar. And let me give the floor to Peter, who's chairing this very interesting roundtable. Please, Peter, go ahead.
Thank you very much. I hope you can hear me well. So we will have a roundtable. Good afternoon, good morning, perhaps even good evening to all of you who are listening in. The topic of this roundtable is the current importance of literacy in macroeconomic financial accounts. But before going into this roundtable, I think it's good to have a short introduction of myself and the four panelists, the four participants to the roundtable. My name is Peter van der Ven. I'm the lead editor of the update of the International Standards for Compiling National Accounts, the SNA. As Daniela already said, luckily I'm not the coordinator. I'm not coordinating because it's a massive effort to update the SNA, and there are, well, worldwide, it's worldwide, many people are involved, and the coordination is in the hands of an intersecretariat working group on national accounts. But I will be the lead editor. Previously, I was head of national accounts at the OECD, and before that, I was director of national accounts at Statistics Netherlands. Then going to the four panelists. First of all, Silvia Fabiani. I hope I pronounced the names right. She is head of the Statistical Analysis Directorate of the DG Economics, Statistics and Research at Banca d'Italia. And this directorate is, amongst others, in charge of the compilation and publication of quarterly and annual financial accounts and balance sheets for Italy, including the analysis of these statistics. Then we will have Jorrit Zwijnenburg. I know I pronounced that name correctly because he's Dutch, as I am. He's head of the sector accounts team at the OECD, which, among other things, regularly publish quarterly and annual financial accounts and balance sheets for OECD countries and beyond, I should add, also for non-OECD countries. OECD also provides assistance to countries in compiling their financial accounts statistics. Then we will have Henning Arnert. He is head of the sector accounts and fiscal statistics section at the ECB. And this section compiles quarterly financial accounts and balance sheets for the Euro area. And they also closely cooperate with the EU national central banks in further developing and producing financial accounts. And last, but certainly not least, I would say we have Bruno Tissot, and Bruno is head of statistics at the BIS, the Bank for International Settlements. He's also the secretary of the Irving Fisher Committee, and this committee represents almost 100 central banks working as producers and users of official statistics. So I think we have an excellent panel here who's highly involved in producing financial accounts and balance sheets, but is also very familiar with analyzing and more generally using this data. As noted before, the topic of the roundtable is the current importance of literacy in macroeconomic financial accounts, and I thought about that, and I think I wonder how to better illustrate this than by discussing the main reasons for compiling financial accounts and balance sheets, and how they are used in daily practice, and how they are further developed and improved, especially in view of financial crisis like the great financial crisis in 2008 to 2010, and the main challenges faced in compiling and analyzing these data. I will start with a more specific question to each of the participants to this roundtable, and then, if time allows, follow up with a more general question on the main challenges for compiling, disseminating, and analyzing financial accounts and balance sheets. So let me start with a question to Silvia from Banca d'Italia. And we all know that the Banca d'Italia has a long tradition in compiling financial accounts and balance sheets, and dates back almost 60 years now. And I wonder, Silvia, whether you could shed some light, you could tell somewhat more about the ways in which the financial accounts and balance sheet data have been used in the activities of the Banca d'Italia, and perhaps you can also add a couple of words on current and foreseen developments. The floor is yours, Silvia.
Thank you, Peter. I hope you can hear and see me. I have a very unstable connection that just kicked me out a few minutes ago, so I hope it holds steady for a while. Thank you again, Peter, for your question. Thanks for the organization of this webinar to the organizers. Indeed, Banca d'Italia has been publishing financial accounts since the early 60s, and it belongs to a restricted set of central banks which have such a long experience in this field. As was already mentioned at the beginning, the development of financial accounts dates back to the contribution of Paolo Baffi, who was hired by the Bank of Italy in 1936, became head of research and future governor. He soon recognized that for predicting the impact of monetary policy as well as the reactions of the economy to shocks, a deeper knowledge was required of the linkages between real and financial phenomena, and that this in turn required knowledge of the terrain on which monetary policy acted, especially of the liquidity position of the various classes of economic agents, which we now call the sectors in today's terminology. And that the analysis of the degree of liquidity for those group of agents required a breakdown by financial instruments. Baffi's contributions influenced Banca d'Italia statistical production strongly, and the related economic analysis. The financial accounts tables that were originally aimed only for internal use were gradually developed as a standard tool and published in the annual reports. And from the early 90s, the bank has been publishing a full set of financial accounts on a quarterly basis. Nowadays, our financial accounts are an input for compiling the euro area aggregate, an ingredient of the economic pillar for ECB monetary policy strategy. However, they have not become less useful or less informative at the national level over the last few years. Quite the contrary. Sector financial accounts and balance sheets are regularly used and commented in annual reports, in quarterly economic bulletin, which both include chapters on financial investment, on indebtedness. They're key ingredients also of our financial stability report, that comments on leverage, cross-country comparisons of private debt, breakdown of government securities by holding sector. They're also a key element in some of the processes, or the crucial processes that govern the functioning of the European Union. They are key for the reconciliation of government debt, which is one of the most important single indicators produced by the bank, with the deficit figures produced by the Statistical Office in the context of the excessive deficit procedure and in the overall validation process of the underlying statistics. They're also at the core of the so-called MIP, the Macroeconomic Imbalance Procedure, that was adopted by the EU after the great financial crisis in order to detect and correct macroeconomic imbalances. Turning to more recent and actually current developments and uses, let's just think of the consequences of the unprecedented shock due to the pandemic. These consequences posed serious challenges for economists for interpreting a very uncommon, apparently also very contradicting macroeconomic picture in Italy, but also in many other countries. On one hand, a sharp decline in household primary income and corporate investment. On the other hand, strong increases in government deficit, booming bank balance sheets, greatest outliers ever seen in private sector deposits. Well, financial accounts, thanks to their multi-sector and who-to-whom structure, as well as the bridging position between real and financial phenomena in the sequence of national accounts, provided a very important and crucial tool for an integrated analysis of these large imbalances that we are observing now. We published our analysis and interpretations based on financial accounts in dedicated notes, which can be found in the Bank of Italy website in the section devoted to COVID-19 related analysis. Apart from COVID-related issues, production of data and statistical publications based on financial accounts by Banca d'Italia is increasing. We will resume very soon a publication together with the National Statistical Institute that focuses on households and firms' wealth in a version that will cover the balance sheets of all the sectors. Well, I guess I will stop here and leave the floor to Peter and my colleagues in the round table. Maybe I'll leave some forthcoming initiatives if we have a space for a second round on this discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sylvia. Must be very challenging, I guess, that you have a prime minister who fully understands what you're doing. So let me turn to Europe. As the Banca d'Italia, but now as an international organization, and the OECD has a long history in disseminating financial accounts and balance sheets for the member countries of the OECD and beyond. And, could you, Europe, tell more about the importance of these data from your perspective, and perhaps emphasize some of the complexities in further developing financial accounts and balance sheets as you have witnessed in the past years? Over to you, Jorrit.
Thank you very much, Peter, and thank you very much for the organizers for setting up this this event. So indeed, at the OECD, we have been publishing financial accounts and balance sheet data for already a very long time, and we see that there is a huge demand for this information. So we have users from policymakers, researchers, the media, analysts, students. So there is a lot of demand, and this is because all of the information that is embedded in the financial accounts and balance sheets, it's a wealth of information from which people might take insights in how activities in the non-financial accounts are being financed. People are interested to assess specific trends for specific sectors in the economy, how financial markets are working, focus on specific issues like government debt, how is this evolving, the evolvement of household net financial wealth, corporations' indebtedness, particularly relevant topics in relation to the current COVID crisis, but also some other topics like the development of pensions in relation to aging societies, the buildup of risk in financial markets, for example, related to the previous financial crisis. And when you look at all these questions, people need to turn to financial accounts and balance sheet data to find the right answers. And I think for us as an international organization, it's really beneficial to receive all these data from the member states to be able to provide international comparisons. And as Daniela was already mentioning, all the data has been set up in an accounting framework. So it's fully consistent, coherent, and it leads to fully comparable results across countries. And I think this is key for a lot of our users to be able to compare across countries. When looking at increasing complexities in the world and in the economy, I think this is one of the challenges we are facing in the international statistical community to properly address these issues and to be able to provide our users with relevant information. So, for example, in relation to the previous financial crisis, non-bank financial intermediation, or sometimes referred to as shadow banking, was a very important driver for increasing financial risks. And within the statistical community, we've tried to address this by providing more granular breakdowns for the financial corporation sector, providing more detailed information to our users to see where specific risks might be building up and also how this might trickle down into the economy. We've also been looking into from whom to whom information that provide more insight in interconnectedness, which also shows more on the buildup of risks and who might be affected by specific events. And I think finally, an important thing that we've worked on is indeed the publication Understanding Financial Accounts, together with a lot of people also present in this event. I think it's very relevant indeed that we provide proper explanations on how to understand financial accounts and balance sheets. It's not an easy topic. And I think the publication Understanding Financial Accounts helps users and also compilers to have a better understanding. And that's why I think also this new training course is going to be very beneficial to the community to have a better use and compilation of financial accounts data. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jorrit. So let's immediately turn to Henning Arnold from the ECB in view of time. I don't think it's possible to underestimate the role of the ECB in monitoring, analyzing, and addressing monetary and financial developments within Europe, especially. And I was wondering, Henning, looking back at the great financial crisis in 2008 to 2010, including the aftermath, which was especially important in Europe, what would you consider the most important learning experiences, especially from a statistical perspective when it comes to compiling financial accounts and balance sheets? So Henning, over to you.
Thank you very much, Peter, and thank you very much also to the organizers, to Giuseppe and Daniela, for organizing this. And we are happy to contribute to this initiative that the University of Sapienza has taken. Financial accounts are used by the ECB quite a lot, but I would like to underline they are used together with many other statistics. So it's the, let's say, the whole range of statistics which are complementary and which belong together. In this way, or in this respect, then the accounts have one additional role, because they set the framework for many analytical tasks, forecasting. It was already mentioned, a macroeconomic imbalance procedure in Europe, things like that. So apart from the pure data, it's also the logical framework of the national accounts and of the financial accounts, which has a great impact on our work. On the financial crisis, let me perhaps dwell on, in the short time available, on one example, which, however, I think is at the core of the topic. It was about securitization at the time. So those of you who were following that may remember banks increasingly securitized loans which they had on their balance sheet. These loans were securitized by setting up special purpose vehicles, financial vehicles elsewhere. Often these vehicles were in another country, so they were maybe out of the reach of the national statistics where the securitization took place. And then these vehicles also issued securities to finance the activity. And these securities were then bought again by other players on the financial market. And overall, I think we had at that time a real issue in properly following this economic phenomenon, which has built up in years before 2008. So what are the lessons? I think the lessons are that, or the follow-up actions. On the one hand, in the years in and after the financial crisis, we have set up in Europe proper financial statistics to cover this topic of securitization. So the banking statistics and the statistics for other financial intermediaries for these SPVs were set up to follow what is going on, what is being de-recognized from the bank's balance sheets, and what is then going into the securitization. Secondly, we then also set up over the years in and after the financial crisis, granular, if not micro statistics on who is actually holding the securities which are issued by those vehicles, but not only by those vehicles. In general, who is holding securities? So which sectors buy and hold securities issued by bank or by government or by other sectors? We call this security holding statistics. Micro or granular statistics. And that then has enabled, and that's maybe a third lesson, by our countries, is famous who to whom presentation. So on the one side, financing, and on the other side, the investment of the sectors. I hope you can follow me because I have a sign that the internet connection is not fully stable. So the who to whom data are now standard in the financial accounts and certainly also promoted by the financial crisis. So from the examples of new statistics, I would like to highlight that the lesson was we need granular statistics, we need micro statistics to be flexible, to cover new phenomena. We have these micro and granular statistics now in the field for securities. We have it in the field for loans. They are being developed or are already available for derivatives, and more may come. These also help to address one particular challenge: to be quick, to be able to react, and to have those information not only available 3 years after the crisis has happened, but to be able to react when a crisis is around and then to deliver the necessary statistical information. Last but not least, I would say international collaboration is needed. The financial crisis was very much a global crisis, and financial accounts have the very attractive feature that these are one of the statistics which follow international standards. We can have the data for all European countries, for G20 countries, and much beyond, and that is a particularly useful asset. So I would leave it with this at this stage. Thank you, Peter.
Yeah, thank you, Henning. Yeah, it was somewhat unstable, but we could follow you.
Okay, so, thank you.
Thank you very much. So now turn to the BIS, to Bruno. And
thank you very much.
Right. Yeah. Well. One moment, Bruno. Just to say that I think the BIS has been and is at the forefront of developments, new developments, in looking at financial accounts and balance sheets. But I always see also that you look at it from a slightly different perspective if you compare it to the, let's say, the ECB or the OECD. So I wonder how you would respond to the question I raised to Henning about the consequences of the great financial crisis. So thank you, Bruno.
Oh, thanks. I was too rapid because I knew the question in advance. So, so 4 points on the lessons. But before that, thank you for the organization and congratulations for the book and the course. So the first point is that important progress has been made over the past 10 years. So we have a lot of better quality, comprehensive, flexible data sets. And for example, for us at the BIS, it has been very important to have indicators on the financial side. For example, what we call a financial cycle. We look at very long evolutions in credit from a global perspective. And with this information, we have been able to make huge progress and to better understand financial cycles and crises. Second point is that we have still a lot of difficulties to compile financial accounts. And for this, what central banks are telling us is that they need more IT resource, more finance, but they need also more skills, more human capital. And it seems to me that the course is very important to do that, and that's why the Irving Fisher Committee of Central Banks is sponsoring this course actively. And we will continue to do so because we hope to have a second and a third course. The third point is that, yes, we should focus on the user side, not just producing data, but using them. And I think Sylvia, Jorit, they have explained that, yes, it's very useful to have the financial accounts, but my feeling is that the potential of financial accounts is very large and still unexplored. So we need to continue to focus on the user side. And this is my last point. When we look at the users, specific attention should be to the policy level. And I'm saying this because obviously central banks, BIS is made of representing a lot of central banks, and central banks are a key role to play. They are both producers, especially of financial accounts, and users of this information for policy. So how can we enhance the usefulness of financial accounts for policy making? It seems to me that there are three main points. One is to make the financial accounts very consistent with other statistics. This point was made by Henning, and I think it's very important. The second thing is that we need also to take this opportunity to better combine micro and macro level statistics, so to go from the granular to the macro level. And the third point, which is very important for the BIS, is to be more relevant in the globalized world. And I don't know whether we will have a second round of questions, but on this aspect of globalization, I think there are 4 points that we should do. First is that we need to have more granularity on what we call the rest of the world. Rest of the world is not a black box. It is a sum of countries and sectors. Second, we should have more global flow of funds. Third, we should have more global databases to measure this phenomenon, like on MNEs, multinational enterprises. We should have registers, we should have global identifiers. And lastly, we should also develop what we call the nationality concept as a complement to the residency-based concept of the SNA. That's all.
Thank you, Bruno. And indeed, well, I think we still have a couple of minutes for last round, but only, let's say, 30 seconds for each of the panelists to say a couple of words about what you see as the main challenges in monitoring and analyzing financial developments in the future, and what are the most important items for research and development to address newly emerging user demands. And I will start with this time with Jorit and end with Sylvia. You already mentioned some of the issues, Bruno, for the future, but you may add 15 seconds or
that's all.
Let's see. Okay, so Jorit.
Thank you very much. 30 seconds. Yeah, I think I would like to highlight the current update of the macroeconomic statistical manuals. So it was already mentioned before. We are in the process of updating the SNA, the balance of payments manual, and here we try to tackle several issues to bring the results more up to speed with the current state of the economy. So addressing issues like fintech, crypto assets, specific challenges faced by globalization, the more granular breakdowns, highlighting entities that have entered financial markets or have increased in importance. And hopefully we can tackle a lot of those issues in the coming years to be included in the updates of the manuals and in the future tables. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Jorit. Henning, 30 seconds.
30 seconds, globalization, always on the agenda, issues like foreign-controlled corporations. Secondly, what we develop in the financial accounts, 2 examples. We call it look-through. So we have in the financial accounts the holdings of households of investment funds. To know is the holdings of so that's an additional dimension of the financial accounts. Last but not least, also distributional information, household sector as an example, non-financial corporation by size, by different categories of these sectors. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And I turn now first to Sylvia.
Just briefly taking from what Henning was mentioning just at the very last, the crisis we've gone through, in particular the one we're dealing with at the current juncture, highlight the need to explore heterogeneity that underlies macroeconomic figures. This is needed to monitor inequalities, vulnerabilities, to develop policies that are targeted towards specific groups. And this is clearly true also for financial and wealth accounts. And the fact that this need ranks really high in the policy debate is reflected in some of the recommendations of the data gap initiatives that have just come to an end, and of the one that is being worked around the proposals discussed at the moment in the international community, of which distribution of information is a crucial pillar.
Okay, thank you very much also for the concise answer. Bruno, you still want your 10 seconds?
Just to insist on globalization and really the need to complement our view based on the residency of economic agents with the global impact of their activities on a cross-border basis, so what we call the nationality basis. Combining the two approaches seems to me something that is very important looking ahead.
Okay, thank you very much, Bruno, and thank you also the other participants, all other panelists, for I think a very useful discussion. I will not try to summarize the discussion, but directly hand over to Giuseppe because we are already 1 minute past time, and you know I'm always very strict on time.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Peter. You have been an excellent chairman from this point of view. So let me end up by sharing my screen on what are the two important internet addresses for the people who attended. We have almost 200 people who attended this seminar, and I imagine from all over the world. The first one is the website that I mentioned already to enroll to the course. It can be easily reached also by typing macroeconomic financial accounts into the Coursera website. And then also the email that is available for this course for any questions. All the attendees here, all the people who are interested or wanting to have more information can write to this email address, macrofinac.sapienza@uniroma1.it. I thank everybody for this very interesting and excellent webinar, and I wish everybody a very good day. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Giuseppe and Danielle, for organizing this. Okay, bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Ne approfitto per salutare anche Claudio, che non vedo da...
Hi, everybody.
Ciao. Grazie Giuseppe, perfetto, eccellente.
Ok, ciao Giuseppe. Ciao.
Grazie. Ciao.
Grazie a te.
Sono le persone che stanno mandando un sacco di messaggi di ringraziamento.
Sì, vedo.
I partecipanti, ah sì, hai visto.
Sì.
Andava bene, no? Mi pare tutto liscio.
Sì, l'unica cosa appunto durante la
allora.
No, dico durante la presentazione di Giuseppe, durante la tua presentazione c'erano tantissime persone che vedevano lo schermo nero. Poi, vabbè, quello lì è stato l'unico problema. Non so perché sia successo, ma non
Va
penso
bene,
neanche.
usciamo da qui a questo punto.
Sì, ok.
Se volete ci ricolleghiamo a breve. Okay.
Dipendeva da loro, perché altri hanno visto benissimo, quindi
infatti.
Va bene,
Ok.
chiudiamo il seminario. Grazie. Francesco,
Ciao.
chiudi pure. Ciao.
Ciao, ciao.
Ciao.
Adesso.